Most people go through life trying to figure out where they fit in the social ladder, whether they're meant to lead, follow, or just blend in somewhere in the middle. They watch how others act, try to match the vibe, and hope they'll eventually find their spot in the group, whether it's at work, in friendships, or when it comes to dating. But what if you've always felt like you don't quite fit into any of these categories? What if the way you naturally handle situations, relationships, and life in general doesn't match what most people expect or understand? You might not be weird or broken. You might just be wired differently than the majority of people around you. Here's the thing about Sigma males. They often don't even realize they are one because they're not trying to be anything specific. They're just being themselves in a world that constantly tries to put people into neat little boxes that don't always fit. The way they naturally think and act is so different from what's considered normal that they can go years feeling like outsiders without even realizing it, because from their point of view, they're totally fine with how they live. The traits that make someone a Sigma aren't about being better or worse than other personality types. They're just different in ways that can be both challenging and rewarding depending on how you look at it. If these 7 behaviors feel natural to you, you might finally have an explanation for why you've always marched to the beat of your own drum. Number 1. You feel uneasy when someone compliments you too quickly. Have you ever had someone tell you how amazing you are within 5 minutes of meeting you, and instead of feeling flattered, you just felt suspicious about what they wanted from you? Most people love getting complimented and will take praise wherever they can get it. But there's something about receiving compliments too early or too easily that makes your internal alarm system start buzzing. Sigma males naturally run credibility checks on everything people say, and when praise comes before someone has actually had time to know them or observe their work, it feels fake or manipulative rather than genuine. It's not that they have low self-esteem or don't think they deserve good things said about them. Their brains just automatically analyze whether compliments are backed by actual observation and experience. This reaction happens because you understand that real appreciation takes time and observation. So when someone jumps straight to flattery without having enough information to back it up, it suggests they're either not paying attention or they're trying to butter you up for something. You'd rather have someone give you honest feedback after they've actually seen what you can do than have them shower you with empty praise that means nothing. What really stands out is how differently Sigma males react to real compliments versus ones that come too early. When someone acknowledges something they've actually accomplished or a skill they've witnessed firsthand, they can accept that recognition naturally. But when praise comes too fast or feels too generic, your brain treats it like suspicious data that doesn't compute with reality, which is why overly enthusiastic compliments from strangers often make you more cautious rather than more trusting. Number 2. You rarely fantasize about being famous, but often imagine disappearing. While most people daydream about being recognized, celebrated, or having everyone know their name, you find yourself fantasizing about the exact opposite scenario, where you could just vanish from all social obligations and live completely on your own terms, without anyone expecting anything from you or even knowing where you are. Sigma males often view fame as a nightmare rather than a dream because it would mean constant scrutiny, loss of privacy, and having to manage other people's opinions and expectations about every choice they make. Instead of imagining themselves on stage or getting awards, they're more likely to daydream about living in remote locations, traveling somewhere nobody knows them, or just being able to move through the world without leaving digital footprints. The idea of disappearing appeals to you not because you're running away from responsibility or avoiding life, but because you crave the ultimate freedom to exist without external pressure or the need to perform for others. The fantasy represents a desire for complete autonomy where your time, energy, and decisions are entirely your own, without having to consider how your choices affect your reputation or relationships. This mindset shows how differently Sigma males are wired from most people. Where others see fame as validation and success, you see it as a prison that would limit your ability to live authentically. The disappearing fantasy isn't about escaping problems. It's about accessing a level of personal freedom that feels impossible to achieve while maintaining the social connections and obligations that come with visible success or recognition in today's connected world. Number 3. You can't fake enthusiasm without it physically draining you. Most people can muster up fake excitement for things they don't care about when the situation calls for it, whether it's pretending to be thrilled about a coworker's presentation, acting interested in small talk about topics that bore them, or showing enthusiasm for social events they'd rather skip. They see this kind of social act as just part of getting along. But when Sigma males try to fake interest in something they don't actually care about, it feels like emotional manual labor. Every forced smile or fake reaction drains them. You can still be polite when it matters, but pretending to care about something that doesn't click takes way more out of you than it does for most people. That's because your brain doesn't really separate real interest from fake interest, so acting enthusiastic feels like fighting your natural wiring instead of working with it. And while most people seem to have a mental switch for social performance, yours either doesn't exist or requires so much effort that it burns you out fast. You function much better when you're genuinely into something, not when you're forcing excitement for stuff that leaves you feeling empty or disconnected from what actually matters to you. Number 4. You're more comfortable being misunderstood than having to explain yourself. Most people feel compelled to clarify their intentions, defend their choices, or make sure others understand their perspective when they sense confusion or judgment from others. They'll spend significant time and energy trying to manage how they're perceived, explaining their reasoning, or correcting misconceptions because being misunderstood feels uncomfortable or problematic. But most of the time, Sigma males find it way less stressful to just let people believe whatever they want, instead of wasting energy trying to explain themselves or prove their intentions. It's not that you don't care about being understood. It's that the process of explaining yourself often feels more exhausting than the discomfort of being misunderstood. You've probably learned by now that people will form their own opinions no matter how much you explain, and trying to control that just ends up draining you for no real payoff. You'd rather use your mental resources on things that actually matter to you than spend time managing other people's perceptions or trying to convince them to see things from your perspective. Sigma males tend to handle misunderstandings differently than most. Where others get frustrated trying to clear things up, you're more likely to just accept it and move on. The peace that comes from not having to constantly explain or defend yourself outweighs the occasional frustration of being misinterpreted by people who probably wouldn't understand the explanation anyway. Number 5. You're terrible at asking for help, but excellent at solving your own problems. There's something deeply uncomfortable about having to explain your situation to someone else, wait for their availability, and then depend on their knowledge or assistance to move forward with something you need to get done. Even when asking for help would be faster, you often find yourself choosing the longer route of figuring things out independently. Sigma males don't usually avoid asking for help out of pride or because they think they're better. It's just that involving other people often adds more complications than it solves. They have to explain the whole situation, hope the other person actually gets what they mean, work around someone else's schedule, and then try to mesh their way of thinking with someone else's, which often ends up feeling more draining than just figuring it out on their own. Since asking for help isn't your go-to move, you've naturally gotten better at figuring things out on your own. You've learned to break things down, think creatively, and push through challenges without waiting on anyone else. The independent Sigma males show isn't about being stubborn. It's just that their brains work better when they can think things through without having to adjust to someone else's way of doing things or pace. You'd rather spend extra time working through something yourself and end up with a solution that makes complete sense to you than take shortcuts that involve depending on others and potentially create more confusion or obligation than the original problem was worth in the first place. Number 6. You sometimes forget to smile, not because you're sad, but because you're focused. Have you ever been deep in thought about something interesting or working through a problem in your mind, only to have someone ask if you're okay, because apparently you looked serious or upset? Most people maintain a certain level of social facial expression, even when they're thinking, but when your mind gets engaged with something complex, your face tends to go completely neutral. Sigma males often end up in awkward situations where people think they're angry, sad, or unfriendly, when in reality, they're just lost in thought and not worried about how their face looks to everyone else. You're not trying to look intimidating or unapproachable. You just don't have that background setting most people use to constantly manage how their face is coming across. Most people learn to keep a pleasant resting face even when they're not doing much, but when you're deep in thought, your brain focuses so hard on what you're thinking that there's nothing left for managing how you look on the outside. What gets frustrating for Sigma males is how often people mistake their focused thinking face for being upset or unfriendly. Then they're stuck either explaining that they're fine or trying to remember to look more approachable while deep in thought. It's like trying to run two apps at once, one for thinking and one just to manage how your face looks while you're thinking. And honestly, that extra effort can mess with your focus and make it harder to stay in the zone in the first place. Number 7. You learn better by reverse engineering systems than by following instructions. While most people are fine following step-by-step instructions or doing things the official way, you've probably always had the urge to take things apart and see for yourself how they work. Whether it's tech, systems, social dynamics, or even someone's behavior, you don't just want to know what works. You want to know why. Instead of trusting a manual, Sigma males would rather reverse engineer something that already works, break it down, and figure out how all the pieces connect. That way, it actually makes sense in their head. And once it makes sense, they can usually find ways to make it better. This way of learning isn't about being rebellious or thinking your way is superior. It's just how your brain builds understanding. You need the big picture first. You need context. You need to know the why behind the how, or the instructions just feel flat. That's why you probably learn faster and deeper than most people, even if your process looks backwards to them. You're not just memorizing steps. You're building a mental blueprint that lets you bend or even reinvent the rules if needed. And in a world full of people who just follow instructions without asking questions, that kind of thinking sets you apart. If this felt familiar or made sense in a way most things don't, give the video a like and consider subscribing for more insights into the Sigma mindset and similar topics. Comments are always open for those who want to share their perspective. Thanks for watching.